You're listening to the Savage Lovecast, Dan Savage's sex and relationship show for grown-ups. If you're under 18, get out of here, youngin'.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
Hey, everybody. There's really nothing I can add to the blizzard of takes about the events of the last week, but I did want to share this. During the marriage equality debate, some on my side, maybe even me once or twice, noted that younger people were much more supportive of marriage equality than older people. So, when we thought the fight was going to be a long one, we would joke that time was on our side. The people who hated us and opposed marriage equality would die off and ... Some right-wingers at the time seized on those jokes, those morbid jokes, and accused gay people, advocates for marriage equality, of wanting our opponents to die, even of wanting to kill our opponents. My answer then and my answer now remains the same. I don't want anyone to die. What I wanted was for our opponents to live long enough to come around, to live long enough to see one of their children or grandchildren come out of the closet. I didn't want to see people who opposed gay marriage in their graves. I wanted to see them dancing at their gay son's wedding. I wanted them to come around like Rob Portman did. He used to be a conservative Republican senator from Idaho. While he was still in the Senate, he came out in support of gay marriage. This was in 2013 when his son came out to him as gay. I want them to come around now like Cyrus Javati, currently a state rep in Oregon, who switched parties this week, left the Republican Party, joined the Democratic Party because his son came out as gay. It shouldn't, of course, take your own son being gay to bring you around on gay rights, or your own daughter needing an abortion to bring you around on reproductive freedom, or your own kid being shot in his classroom to bring you around on gun control. But that does seem to be what it takes for most conservatives. Anyway, and still, I don't want anyone to die. So I found myself agreeing and laughing, as I so often do, with comedian Michelle Wolf, who posted this clip to her Instagram account over the weekend.
Right-wing commentator Charlie Kirk was shot in the neck talking about guns. He was very supportive of the Second Amendment and the right to own guns. He was also a bigot and a misogynist. Does that mean I think he should have been shot in the neck? No, of course not. I would much rather him live a very long life and grow old to watch his daughter become a successful, independent career woman who's maybe a little into witchcraft. Think of all the things he might have seen in his lifetime. You know, like a lesbian president. Nationally recognized Muslim holidays. Beautiful mixed-race children. Unisex urinals. Stuff that would have made his head explode metaphorically. That's my wish for all of these people. They get to see a future they hate, no matter what they tried to do. And he'd be like, I tried my best. And someone else would be like, not hard enough, buddy. Which is the only term we're allowed to use anymore because it doesn't assume sex one way or the other. Don't kill these people. Let them live to see a future they hate.
I almost entirely agree with Michelle Wolf here. I actually didn't want Charlie Kirk to grow old and live in a world he hated. I wanted him to grow old and learn that he had nothing to fear from lesbian presidents and unisex urinals and love the world he lived in. But if I'm going to be realistic, and if I'm allowed to paraphrase Upton Sinclair, it is difficult to get a right-wing influencer to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it. But if George Wallace could pull the 180 he did, listeners under 60 are going to have to go Google George Wallace, the politician, not the comedian. If he could pull that 180, anything is possible. We are living through a perilous moment. These are dangerous times. The storm clouds are no longer on the horizon. They are here. These are especially perilous times. This is an especially brutal time for trans people. If you have trans friends, please check in with them. If you are trans, please know you have our support. This is also a perilous time for immigrants. I got a flu shot last week, and the guy who gave me my shot had an accent and brown skin, and I usually wouldn't say something for fear of othering someone or just being cringe, but I asked him how he was doing, how his family was doing right now. We wound up talking for 20 minutes. He's an immigrant who came to the United States from Iraq when he was 11 years old. He told me his father, whose English is poor, is afraid to leave his apartment in Los Angeles for fear of being grabbed off the street by masked men. There wasn't much I could say except that I was sorry his father was living in fear and that I hoped this fucking country would come to its senses and that the people responsible for terrorizing his father would be removed from power. I said I hoped things would get better and soon, and then things got worse and fast. You're right, the president. He's right now trying to raise the temperature, and it feels like all we can do is our best to lower it. I was reading, God help me, George Orwell's 1984 this weekend. I was in a cabin on a mountain, a place with glorious fresh air and gloriously spotty Wi-Fi, and 1984 was the only book in the house in English. There is, I'd forgotten, a lot of hot sex in 1984. I didn't remember that. I'm surprised they're still letting high school kids read 1984 in red states. Maybe the right sees it not as a cautionary tale, but as a how-to manual. Back to the sex, Charles Vaught Jr. presented a paper on Orwell in 2016 that I found on the internet. 2016, the year our authoritarian nightmare began. Vaught's paper was titled Rebels from the Waist Down, an exploration of sex and love in 1984. Throughout the novel, Vaught wrote, Orwell represents sexuality in this dystopian society as something that has to be suppressed and warped into a forced love for Big Brother. The very act of sex for fun is viewed as an act of revolt, and those who participate in it are depicted as insurgents. Donald Trump really does aspire to be Big Brother. It is transparent. The banners with his face on them hanging from federal buildings in Washington, D.C. makes that clear. He can't force us to love him, but right now he can force us to think about him constantly, to worry about what he's going to do or say next. But you know when Donald Trump doesn't intrude on my thoughts? When I'm having sex for fun, fucking someone just for the fun of it. Feels like a revolt against all the right-wingers out there pushing Christian nationalism and natalism and misogyny and transphobia and homophobia. So maybe, in addition to connecting with your friends, checking in and erring on the side of maybe saying something cringe by asking the guy who gave you your flu shot how his family is doing right now, and in addition to going to the demos, they do matter. The next No Kings demonstrations are on October 18th. Go to nokings.org to find the demo near you. Maybe in addition to all that, you should go fuck someone. And you know who really needs a fuck right now? Gen Z. The members of Gen Z over the ages of 18, over the ages of consent, 18 to 28-year-old members of Gen Z are having less sex than any other generation. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this sexless, loveless, blowjobless generation is shifting to the right. So, fuck someone this weekend. Take your mind off things. To be an insurgent, to be a rebel from the waist down. The democracy you save might be your own. All right, coming up on today's show, a man will be attending a wedding with his girlfriend's other boyfriend. How can he explain their relationship to the normies? And a newly married woman just found out her wife and her wife's best friend were fuck buddies for a decade, and she is not happy about what she found out and how she found out about it. And in things I had to Google for people this week, you have a gluten allergy, your partner eats a lot of breadsticks. Is there gluten in his cum? And if there is, will it kill you? And joining me on the Magnum, become a supporter right now at savage.love to get more Lovecast, more Savage Love, invites to Savage Love Live on the Magnum this week, which you can hear if you become a sub. Comedian Gianmarco Soresi is back. We talk about his new special, Thief of Joy, premiering this Friday. We also talk what it was like for Gianmarco to be the only straight boy at musical theater camp, and why, if Gianmarco is so straight, is he constantly on Fire Island in a Speedo. One last thing, micro listeners, you now have access to every Savage Lovecast, the entire archive, every Savage Lovecast since our dismal first episode, recorded in 2006. Listen to my thoughts on pegging before pegging had a name. And by popular demand, our merch shop now has t-shirts in women's cuts and sizes. You're going to want to get your hands on one of our Fuck This Shit shirt because there's so much shit out there that needs to be fucked. And ITMFA shirts available now at savage.love/shop. And hey, we are going to have new Feast of the Ass merch this year, hats and t-shirts up on the website, up in the shop early enough that you can order it and have it before Christmas and before the Feast of the Ass on January 14th, 2026. All right, Nancy, let's get to the first call. This episode is sponsored by Hims, affordable access to ED treatment, all online. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/savage. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by ericalust.com, the world's leading platform for ethical cinematic adult films. Right now, my listeners get 45% off your subscription when you enter the code SAVAGE45 at ericalust.com. That's ericalust with a K. This episode is brought to you by VB Health, doctor-formulated supplements that work. To learn more about Load Boost, Drive Boost, and Soaking Wet, and to get 10% off, visit vb.health and use the code SAVAGE.
Hi, Dan. I'm a cis man in my 40s, and I'm part of a little Polycule. There's 3 of us. We own a house together. We're raising a dog together. Going to have kids together soon, we hope. Our Polycule is my partner and my meta. My meta is another cis man about the same age as me. We are in the, I would say, a loving friend relationship, loving life partner relationship. Care about each other a lot, not sleeping together, no romance together. And we are going to a family wedding in California. We're from New England. And we're going to my aunt's wedding in California. She is a very sweet woman, very normie, getting married to a very normal man with a very normal group of friends around them who have very little exposure to anything outside of normal cis-het life. And we're trying to figure out how to present ourselves at this wedding. We're like, how do we, people, we're going to have so many conversations where people are like, who are you? How are you related to each other? What's going on here? And we're trying to decide, is it easier to just pretend we're gay? Is it just easier to say, we're partners and let people just infer that we're gay? Or, should we, I'm like, there's so many words out there to describe ourselves. Meta is how I talk about my partner for, or this partner for, people who are in the know, who know the lingo. My partner's partner is another one. I don't know, future father of my children. My dog's other dad. There's so many things, but we're like, how do we make this simple and easy for people to digest? What's easy and what's fun? What do you think, Dan?
I think you should have told me whether all 3 of you were going to the wedding or you're bringing your meta as your +1, because that would make a difference. If your aunt had invited all 3 of you, that would, of course, mean your aunt knows you're in a polyamorous relationship and that you needed a +2 if she wanted to include all of your partners. I also think that I've never really liked the term metamor. Maybe that's just my internalized polyphobia, but I've never liked metamor. And I never call my husband's boyfriend meta, even though I prefer generally shorter terms and punchier terms than long-winded ones. I always call my husband's boyfriend and not my meta. And I think meta's now, in addition to always being a little awkward, and you'd have to explain it anyway, because if somebody wasn't familiar with the term, and most people aren't, most normies at a normie wedding aren't going to be familiar with the term metamor or meta, you're going to have to explain what it means anyway, and then you get into my husband's boyfriend territory, or he is my partner's other partner territory. And also, didn't Mark Zuckerberg kind of ruin Meta by renaming his evil empire Meta? All right, those are the 2 things I think. Look, people can wrap their heads around shit pretty easily, so long as you don't present it to them as if it's really that confusing and it's not a cancer diagnosis, it's just a fact about you. If it's just the 2 of you, you and your other partner, even if you don't have a romantic relationship, even if you don't have a sexual relationship. You're not a stranger to you. You live together. You're planning to co-parent together. You own a dog together. You could just say partner. And if the people that you've introduced him to as your partner, which will require a lot less unpacking and explaining than introducing him to other people as your metamor or meta is going to, they may think that your relationship is intimate sexually when in reality your relationship is just intimately. You have an intimate relationship. You live in a house together. I have an intimate relationship with my husband's boyfriend, Tom, because we all live together. So we are something more than strangers to each other and something more than just my husband's two partners or two boyfriends or my husband's one husband and one boyfriend. So you could say partner. And if they think gay things when you say partner, let them think those gay things when you say partner. And if people, as they sometimes do to pass the time at weddings, because weddings, while delightful, I always cry at weddings, bawl my eyes out at weddings. There are long stretches that are pretty boring where people talk about themselves. And if somebody has a question, like, strike a blow for polyvisibility and answer their questions. And yeah, your relationship with your romantic and sexual partner, who may or may not be coming to this wedding, I'm inferring, and your relationship with your metamor is a little more complicated than most. It's going to be harder for people to slot or track. People can slot and track pretty easily. Someone who has one partner, instantly identify them as default straight, even though it could be bisexual if they have an opposite sex partner and they're there at the wedding together. But for people to wrap their heads around polyamory and the kinds of relationships that you have, you need poly people to talk about those relationships. And if you're all three living together, if you're all three co-parenting a dog and planning to co-parent some actual human children, you're going to have to explain yourself to a lot of people over the next 10, 15, 20 years. You're going to have to explain yourself to the nurses at the maternity ward where your partner gives birth to the children that you three are going to raise together. You're going to have to explain yourselves to the first homeroom teacher your first kid has. You're going to have to explain yourself to new neighbors if you should ever move. You're going to have to explain yourself to employers when it comes to getting your kids on your health insurance and how all that's going to pan out. So you're going to have to be doing a lot of explaining over the next 10, 15, 20 years. Why not get some practice in at this wedding?
Hi, Dan. So me and my wife have been married a little over 9 months now, and everything is going so great. I have a question, something that's really been nagging me, really on my mind. My wife has a best friend, a friend who she's known since they both came out when they were teenagers, and who I was really hoping to impress when we first met, and that she would also be my friend because she was really cool, and my wife loved her, and she was one of my wife's bridesmaids at our wedding, and she came with us to look at houses recently, and it was all great. We went to a party 2 weeks ago, and one of their other friends who lives in Australia now, who is over in the States, basically was like, you know that your wife and her friend used to hook up a lot. And I don't mean like once or twice. I mean like for years. I mean like for over 10 years. They weren't going out, but they were hooking up for 10 years. And I was not privy to that information. And that made me so furious. And when I confronted my wife in the taxi home, I'll bet after a couple of glasses of wine, I could have probably handled it better. At first, she denied it. And then when we got home, she texts me from the bathroom to say, oh, I didn't want to tell you. I knew that you'd be upset. It doesn't mean anything. This is the friend that calls around to our house like at least twice, 3 times a week. And I did not know that they used to hook up for 10 years. And my jealousy is now it's sky high. And I'm furious. I'm really, really mad that no one decided that I needed to know that information. What do I do about this? I really don't want to see this friend anymore. I feel very betrayed, and I feel like I should have known this. And I feel like if I would have known it, I would have been fine with it. But now I'm furious.
So you and me, we are not the same. I had a boyfriend a million years ago. This is before Terry. We'd been together for a year. He was jealous. He was very jealous, very possessive, very volatile. And he was constantly accusing me of having cheated on him or someone of trying to get with me. And it was a lot. And I went out of town. We'd been together for a year. I wasn't traveling a lot at that time. I went out of town for a weekend, basically one night. I was out of town one night. And I came home and he's on the couch in our living room. We're already living together. And he tearfully confesses that he cheated on me. And he was really worried that I was going to break up with him. And I just looked at him and went, was he hot? Can we have a three-way? And then he blew up at me. He was so angry at me that I wasn't angry at him for cheating on me because that meant I didn't care about him. And I was like, wait, you've been blowing up at me for a year about me cheating on you. I turned my back for 12 hours and you cheat on me and I'm in trouble? I'm the one getting yelled at here? Anyway, if this had happened to me, if someone had come up to me after my wedding, 9 months after my wedding, to tell me that somebody in my husband's friendship circle had been his fuck buddy on and off for a decade, my response would not have been to feel betrayed. My response would have been to feel like, hey, maybe we could have a three-way then if this friend was hot. But that's me. I may have a superpower that you do not have. Look, your wife, who texted you from the bathroom to admit that this was true, should have told you about this. You say that if you had known about it from the beginning, you would have been fine with it. There's one way when you find yourself in the position that you're in to prove that you would have been fine with it had you known, and that's to be fine with it now that you do know. It gives you tremendous moral authority going forward. It also gives you the right to say to your wife of 9 months, what else don't I know? Are there other things that you haven't told me because you were worried that I would have a bad reaction or it would upset me? Now is the time to disclose all of those things that you may have kept from me. So, because getting it all out of the way now, maybe our relationship, maybe our marriage survives. But if there's other time bombs waiting to go off and other toxic friends in the wings trying to make trouble, like that friend at the event that you were at who came up to tell you this, I don't think our marriage will survive a bomb like this going off every 6 months or every 9 months. So all of it now, out with it, all of it. And see what she says. As for exiling your wife's best friend since she was a teenager, go see a couples counselor, talk about it. Asking your wife to choose between you, her wife of 9 months, and her best friend since she was a teenager that she used to hook up with every once in a while over a decade because they were there, they were available, they had a connection, or maybe they were just, pussy of last resort for each other. Asking her to choose between the two of you puts your wife in the position of having to choose. And what if she chooses? Do you want her to choose her friend? I think if I were put in that position, being forced to choose between the two most important relationships in my life, I would default to choosing the person who didn't put me in the position of having to choose between the two most important people in my life. Your feelings, I want to validate your feelings. You feel embarrassed, betrayed, humiliated because apparently everybody else knew, but you did not. You were the only one in the dark. This friend knew who's coming over 2 or 3 times a week and hanging out with you. She knew. And you didn't. That's humiliating and embarrassing. And you needing to take some time away from your wife's friend is one thing. You telling your wife she has to cut this friend out of her life is another thing altogether. If you can get assurances from your wife that they aren't still fucking every once in a while, which I assume they're not. Teenage fuck buddies, that tends to run its course. Usually a little quicker than a decade, but tends to run its course. And how's the sex with your wife? Is she into you? Is it good? Do you guys have a strong sexual connection? All right, then she's probably not sneaking off behind your back to go fuck somebody she fucked a million times when she was 18. I ache for you. I really do. But if you would have been okay with this had you known from the beginning, you could give your wife the gift of backdating when you found out about this to the beginning of your relationship. And I don't know how long ago that was. You say you've been married for 9 months. You don't tell us how long you've been together. But if you can't, you can't. Some people can't. Some people don't have my particular superpower and can't. But if you can't forgive the wife, this is going to slowly eat away at your relationship, at your marriage. The wife's resentment of having to get rid of her friend, that's corrosive. And I'm going to assume it's not just the friend she was fucking that you're going to want your wife to get rid of, but the friend who ratted your wife and her friend out to you at that party unnecessarily. You want to get rid of her too, although maybe you should thank her because now you know what you didn't know, and now you can demand to know what else you don't know if there's anything else you haven't been told. And your wife needs to come the fuck clean about whether there's anything or anyone else. ED can make you feel out of control. Hims lets you take it back with personalized treatment options, including daily meds that support more spontaneous moments. Don't let ED get in the way of a fabulous sex life. Through Hims, you can access personalized prescription treatment options for ED like Hard Mints and Sex RX Plus Climax Control if prescribed. Hims offers access to ED treatment options ranging from Hard Mints to trusted generics that cost 95% less than the brand names, if prescribed. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hims brings expert care directly to you with 100% online access to personalized treatments that put your goals first. This isn't one-size-fits-all care that forgets you sitting out there in the waiting room. It's your health and goals put first with real medical providers, making sure you get what you need to get the results you and your partner want. Think of Hims as your digital front door that gets you back to your old self with simple 100% online access to trusted treatments for ED and more, all in one place. To get care for ED, hair loss, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/savage. That's HIMS.com/savage for your free online visit. Let them know the Lovecast sent you. hims.com/savage. Actual price will depend on product and subscription plan. Featured products include compounded drug products, which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See website for details, restrictions, and important safety information.
Dan, late 30s, cis gay man, married to another cis gay man. My question is a little embarrassing because I have no shame around what I love, which is guzzling cum. But I was recently diagnosed with having a gluten allergy, and I'm trying to weed off gluten, but my husband loves gluten. Is that a thing that comes through cum? I guess I could Google this, but I don't want to waste AI water resources, and I want to ask you.
So you've just offloaded the Googling of this to me. I Googled it for you. First return, actually, in the AI overview. No, there is no gluten in semen. Reddit. Me and my girlfriend were wondering, she has celiac. Is there gluten in my semen? Semen is gluten-free. There, I Googled it for you. You are welcome. And you are welcome to get out there and guzzle all the cum you like, including your husband's cum. The donuts will not be in his semen. Masturbation isn't anything to be ashamed of. Pleasure is good. You should seek it out, and you should enjoy it. Sex positivity has been my mission for a long ass time. That's why I'm delighted to welcome Erica Lust as a sponsor of the show. Erica Lust is here to reimagine how we see and feel pleasure. Erica Lust is an award-winning filmmaker and the force behind the world's leading platform for ethical cinematic adult films. With Erica Lust, you get more than porn. You get real intimacy, real orgasms, real stories. Every film is made with consent, craft, and care, from casting to climax. Whether you're watching solo or with a partner, Erica Lust's work celebrates what actually turns people on, with equal pleasure for everyone involved. People ask me all the time where to find ethical porn. Here, right there, ericalust.com. This is it, folks. And right now, Erica Lust is offering Savage Lovecast listeners 45% off your subscription when you enter the code SAVAGE45 at Erica Lust. Erica is spelled with a K, ericalust.com, SAVAGE45 at checkout. Go get it at ericalust.com.
Hey there, Dan. I am a mother of an autistic son, and they have gender dysphoria. For a couple years, they wanted to identify as female and then wanted to identify as asexual and now back to a female, but also does not want to identify as a human at all, but a fluffy dragon. And I'm not kidding. But they still want to have surgery to transition to female. I personally think that they just don't know who they are and find puberty awkward. I know there must be resources out there where they can talk to someone else who understands. I'm wondering who could help.
I support trans kids. One of the ways I think we support trans kids is by making sure they're actually trans before an orchiectomy. I'm sorry, an orchiectomy is forever. And a kid who's autistic, who identified as female and then identified not as a human, but as a fluffy dragon, may not yet know themselves well enough to make a decision as final as an orchiectomy is. You can support your kid's gender journey, as they sometimes call it, by allowing your kid to express themselves however they like, dress however they like, style their hair however they like, use whatever pronouns, whatever names they want to use, support them in this exploration, and also support your kid by not at 15 allowing your child to make decisions, medical decisions, surgical decisions, that your kid may not be competent. I'm not saying your kid is mentally incompetent, but be ready to make. And then when your kid is an adult and perhaps has a more stable sense of who they are, and I'm sorry, a kid who signed male at birth, identifies as trans as a teenager, identifies as a fluffy dragon, then identifies as trans again, I don't think that kid has a stable sense of who they are in adulthood. After your kid is 18 years old, maybe they'll have a better sense of who they are. I know it's not an apples to apples comparison, but when I was 15 years old, if there had been a pill, when I was 14 years old, if there had been a pill I could have taken that would have made me straight, I would have swallowed the whole bottle. I'm so glad that I didn't do that. I'm so glad that I'm gay. All the best things in my life really have come from being gay. The people I've met, the places I've gone, the people I'm in relationship with, it all flowed from that. But at 14, it was fucking miserable being gay. Only bad things flowed from being gay. There's only negative consequences. And again, it's not an apples to apples comparison, but I would have regretted being allowed to take those pills at 14. And I worry that your child would come to regret surgical interventions that they may have desperately wanted at 15 if they had accessed them. And I don't think it's unreasonable to wait. In the case of a child like yours, where their sense of self, their sense of their own species, seems so in flux, you ask what resources there are out there. Really, the best resource is a loving and supportive family. And it sounds like your kid's got that in you. You can look around for therapists, counselors. There's tons of resources online. If your kid is pressuring you, pressing, insisting they want surgical interventions, they want gender-affirming surgical care at this stage of life, the current political climate and the moving away from providing this kind of care for minors may have gotten you off the hook, because what your kid is telling you they want right now may not, depending on where you live, be available to them anymore. So it may not be a decision or choice that they can make until they're an adult. You're in a tough spot, and I ache for you. And I don't think there's anything transphobic or bigoted about you wanting your kid to come to a more stable sense of who they are before they make choices that can't be unmade. And really, an orchiectomy would be right there at the top of the list of choices once made that cannot be unmade.
Hello, Dan. I am 37 years old and heteroflexible. I went through a divorce fairly recently. It was very hard on me, a real crucible in my life. And I am getting kind of back on my feet finally, emotionally. And I'm realizing that some old demons are coming back. Basically, there's a tension between three things. One is my ideal in romantic relationships is that it's all very easy, that we're just sort of aligned. And I feel that the only thing that stops me from meeting women is something that's wrong with the world. The world's broken. It's not her fault. It's not my fault. The world's broken. I think I can say that legitimately if we look at the world. The second thing is in this world, and my way of hacking through this reality has been to become a ruthless competitor in finance. I've been successful. I'm sure I've ruined people's careers at some point. Other competitors, other sharks, right? Out for blood. But in romantic relationships, I want that to be a walled garden, a special place where it's like I go to her apartment and I check my fucking sword at the door. That mindset's gone. I used to idolize Gordon Gekko, but I hate him. I don't want to be like Gordon Gekko. Certainly not with lovers. But the world tells me that I have to adopt that same sort of manipulative mindset that I use in work, that I have to run a strategy. That's what it feels like the world's telling me I have to do. I could tell you many examples where women I'm dating tell me that they're expecting me to be running a strategy. They all are. I can't just be honest. If I start running a strategy, I go into the ruthless competitor mode. I'm out for blood. Hard to separate those two things. It's programmed into me, the ruthlessness. If I start running a strategy, I'm going to hurt someone. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to run a strategy. How do I be honest then?
People have romantic strategies, people have business strategies, but just because they use that same word, strategies, to describe the choices that they're going to make while they're competing for mates, and it is a competition for mates, doesn't mean you're going to apply the same Gordon Gekko-y, Patrick Bateman-y skill set that you might bring to the business world where you're trying to get a leg up over your competitors and drive them all out of business and hoard all the money for yourself. You wouldn't bring that same skill set to your romantic relationships, or you shouldn't bring that same skill set to your romantic relationships. Women aren't, or you shouldn't see them as, a resource to be exploited or hoarded. It may be, based on how you describe yourself and perhaps the way you comport yourself or what it is you talk about on first dates, that you're attracting women who see you as potentially a resource to hoard and exploit. If the women that you're going out on dates with are all looking for rich guys, if you're not, as a part of your romantic strategy, putting yourself out there in places where you're going to meet women who share your interest in ... something else besides driving your competitors out of business or polishing your Lamborghinis or whatever it is that you do in your free time. If you're only meeting women on dating apps for rich guys and the women who want to marry rich guys, well, then you're going to go into those interactions eyeing each other as exploitable resources. You, a financial resource to be exploited, potentially. She, a flesh resource to be exploited somehow. So you need to tease these two things apart. If what you really want is a relationship with someone that feels easy and you feel aligned and it's kind of walled off from who you are and how you have to, the armor you have to put on when you go out there into the business land and compete with other business land people, okay, go find someone that has nothing to do with that part of your life and make a conscious effort to be a different person, to make an effort to make sure that your mating strategies around romance as you seek a mate bear no resemblance to your strategies around business, which probably involves some duplicity and bullshitting and game playing and exploitation of whatever leverage you can get. Yeah, don't do that. Just go when you're with somebody that you're interested in romantically, just be a fucking human being. And you can be a different human being. I hope that you Gordon Gekko types are different human beings when you're with someone that you like, as opposed to someone that you regard as a mortal threat, a business competitor who is seeking some advantage over you to drive you out of business and hoard all your wealth. But you're not going to probably meet that kind of woman in a hotel bar that attracts a bunch of Gordon Gekko types. You're going to meet a woman who's looking at you as a potentially exploitable resource. And then there will be mutual suspicion there and hostility. And that ain't going to be good. So my advice would be to join a rock climbing club, to take up board games and find some cafe in your community that hosts board game nights and just develop some interests other than making money and go do those things, go places, meet people as that human being, as that other side of yourself. And then maybe you'll meet some women who are interested in you as a human being and not as a Black American Express card. Though I want to say one last thing. When you say you want things to be easy and aligned, sometimes rich people, I think you might be a rich person. Shout out to my rich people listeners. This is a safe place for rich people. We want rich people to have good, great, kinky sex lives with partners that they like too. Sometimes rich people, when they say they want everything easy and aligned, they don't want to be challenged. They want to be deferred to by their subordinates, by the people who work for them, and feared by their competitors. Easy and aligned. If what you mean by that is you see your potential future mate as a subordinate who has to defer to you because you have the Black American Express card, that's not going to be a healthy relationship. That's not going to be the walled garden that you hope it is. You will, if you have a decent relationship, it is going to be, even if she makes 1/1000th of the money that you make, it'll be a relationship between two equals if it's going to be a healthy and functional relationship. And healthy and functional relationships are a lot of things, but they're not always easy, and two people aren't always aligned. You may have conflicts that you have to work through, prices of admission that even you, Black American Express card, have to pay to be in that relationship with someone who loves you, not someone who is going through the motions with their own strategies of pretending to love you for your money. So join a book club, dude. Leave a Black American Express card at home. All right, time for some listener feedback. First up, a few comments listeners left in the comment threads about last week's show at savage.love. Says Ted the Bellhop, for the lady who loves those public disgrace videos at kink.com but worries about the ethics. Lady, just like you can't verify everything is ethical in capitalism, you can't verify everything is ethical in porn. Give yourself a break on this one. While kink.com isn't perfect, I believe they are one of the best sources for the kind of porn you crave. May you fap in peace. There's a long comment from Unjust for Fun. Unjust for Fun's comment includes a suggestion about where the caller can find public disgrace style videos that she can be sure are made for the love of the game and not the paycheck. Also a post too long to share from I Boop Noses, who insists that men are in fact capable of having prostate-only orgasms. I am not a believer. If you want to believe, go read the post up now in the comment thread on last week's show by I Boop Noses. Says Jonathan, superstar commenter on the same subject, Dan, prostate orgasms are real. Now, they're not common, but I have given them with multiple guys. The headspace is key, says Jonathan, and this tends to be in kinky, filthy BDSM sex, not romantic missionary. Lots of whole play, rimming, big toys, often fisting in addition to just fucking. Again, it's a rare treat, not something you can reliably predict. And finally, says no cute name, more John Thomas, please. Isn't he great? For more John Thomas, the John Thomas you can introduce to your mom, check out his health and fitness Instagram account at John East Fitness. For the rest of John, check out his not safe for work Twitter, JohnThomas_fans. All right, to join the convo and become one of our superstar commenters, go to savage.love, click on the latest Lovecast or column or struggle session, scroll down to the bottom, and jump right in. And now, Savage Love listeners who left voicemails on our answering machine about last week's show get to have the last word on this week's show.
Hi, Dan. Calling after just listening to your latest episode where you had a caller had questions about prostate orgasms, and you refer to yourself as a prostate orgasm truther. And I was actually very surprised, as somebody that regularly has prostate orgasms, not the way that you described it, of like a little drib drab out of your penis. No, this is like full on, like I just came really hard and it was incredible kind of orgasm. I will say I've never been able to have them with like traditional PIB sex. Like that doesn't really happen. It always has to be with a vibrator, and usually with a like kind of narrow, like very, because it's more about like the vibrating, hitting the prostate, and like the vibrating is a very important part of it. And I've been able to get there just using like a magic wand against my taint area, which feels great, and it ends up just like pressed up against my perineum and just like kind of thrusting in a way. And then that, I feel like, does the same thing, and it doesn't, I'm not actually inserting, but I'm getting that vibrating feeling, and it ends up making me come, like for real come.
Hi, Dan. I was just listening to you talking to Erica Luss, and I had to take issue with how you framed content creators. While I think the boom in self-production is very positive for performers, I think it's incorrect to say that you can be more assured that an OnlyFans performer is performing sexual acts that they genuinely are turned on by. A director may no longer be telling you what to do in a scene, but you know who is? Your fans. The vast majority of performers cater heavily to their fan bases because that's who pays their bills. So I agree that there's a lot less in-person mistreatment because a lot more people are self-producing. However, many people burn out on the pressure from their fan base to look a certain way or perform certain acts. That's why I think it's so important for creators to work hard to create a brand around something that is comfortable, fun, and sexy for them.
Hi, Dan. I was actually calling in response to the question from the gay couple who had their third who was going a bit quick for them during their threesomes. Earlier this year, I was pegging a submissive friend of mine for the first time. And I'm a lady who doesn't mind some jackhammering myself now and again. And I was just sort of doing what I enjoy. And in the moment, he kind of turned to me and sort of purred in this very sexy voice, slower. And the way he did it was so sexy that it definitely added to the scene. It didn't take away or put me out of the dominant mindset to hear his feedback. So I would say just be brave and go for it. Just say it in a sexy voice. Keep the mood rolling, but still give the feedback. I guarantee no one's going to be upset.
And we are going to leave it there. Got a sex question? Got a relationship problem? Go to savage.love/askdan right now to record and upload your question directly onto our website. Or you can make a voice memo and email us your question or your comment by sending it to q@savage.love. Or you can call us at 206-302-2064 and leave us a message on our very old-fashioned answering machine. But please, when you call, speak up. Drunk calling us is fine. We love a good drunk call, but calls recorded in moving cars aren't usable. Pull over, turn off the car, and record your question. And, of course, no drunk calls from moving cars. If you can hear the sound of my voice right now, you are a listener of the Savage Lovecast, and we want to hear from you. Fill out our listener survey at savage.love/survey, and you'll be entered to win a free year of the Savage Lovecast Magnum. Head to savage.love/survey and let us know what you think of the show. Follow me at Blue Sky at Dan Savage. Follow me on Instagram at Dan Savage. Gianmarco Soresi's new comedy special, Thief of Joy, will be available on YouTube this Friday, September 19th. You can and should already be following Gianmarco on Instagram at Gianmarco Soresi. GIANMARCOSORESI. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian. And me and Nancy and the tech-savvy at-risk youth, we will all be back at you next week with another installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you just for being here week after week with us. We really appreciate you.